Welcome to another episode of Health Your Way podcast, where we discuss health issues ranging from physical, mental, emotional, as well as current facts. Today's episode is sexual health, why intimacy is important for your overall health. My guest today is Jessica Mowforth. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Jessica is a holistic intimacy coach who's an award-winning speaker with a viral video on transforming your sexual trauma to love and forgiveness. That's powerful. Like that content and stuff. When I say it out loud, that sounds really good. And congratulations, respects to you winning that award.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I think for a lot of people, they're like, okay, intimacy and sex, for me personally, I've always assumed it's the same. And I guess asking you, because you're the coach yourself, are they one and the same? And if not, how are they different?
Perfect. And again, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on here, because this is my all-time favorite conversation. And you're not the only one that has the confusion around this. I get this question all the time. So I love this topic. So let's dive deep into that. But no, sex and intimacy have similarities and intertwine, but are separate. Like, you want to bring intimacy into your sex life with your partner, but intimacy does not equal sex. And I think that's where people can sometimes get hurt, because there is the misconception of, okay, if we're going to be intimate, that means we're going to have sex. But intimacy itself is actually the safe space, the environment, the exchange, in openness and connection. Oh. So it's how you can show up as your most vulnerable self. It's the safety or the safe space to be truly authentic and individual to who you are, and feeling the closeness and having the ability to truly feel seen and feel heard and got with who you are in your actual truth, as opposed to who you think you should be for somebody else.
Like when you say that, like so much emotions goes through my mind. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of people don't understand that. They put sex and intimacy as one, and they automatically assume that if you're having sex with that person, you're being intimate. And I think based on what you said and based on what I'm grabbing from you is that sex itself is an actual act. It doesn't automatically mean intimacy. And tell me if I'm misunderstanding that concept.
For sure. And that's why we're having a lot of disconnections in our relationships, is because society has taught us to build foundations based on lust and infatuation. Okay. Versus building an emotional connection, which is where you're going to find that delicious intimacy, where you can actually connect with your partner and partner in the relationship, versus just kind of go based on expectations and disconnect.
And I get that. And I think just to step back for a second, like when we talk about intimacy and sexual health, like a lot of people don't realize that they help your overall health. Like, what are some of the benefits to make sure? What are some of the benefits that people should be aware of when they have intimacy in their sexual life? Does that make sense? Does that question make sense?
I think so. I'm going to talk on it, and if it doesn't hit what you want me to, you can ask me in a different way. First and foremost, what we need to pay attention to is our intimacy within ourselves. Okay. And this is where you're going to see a ton of health benefits, not just with the intimacy with other people, because we have the expectation that pleasure, intimacy, all of those things come from outside. It's our partners that are supposed to provide that for us. But if we don't have an intimate relationship with who we are, then we're disconnected from our purpose. We're disconnected from our self-care. We're kind of like shooting things out and hoping something sticks. And then we're going to call that our relationship or whatever it may be, as opposed to building and cultivating the intimacy within ourselves. Who are we? What do we want? Who are we being in our partnerships? Who are we being in our day to day, versus what should we be doing and what shouldn't we be doing, and all of these weird expectations. But once you get clear on who you are, what you want, like a great question, especially if we're going to target intimacy around relationships, is what are 3 things that scare you the most about being in a relationship? When you actually see things like that, like answers, that is also you becoming intimate with yourself to fully understand what it is you desire, what it is you need, what it is you want, what you're looking for, And then it's up to you to then take the steps necessary and the self-care necessary in order to live that yourself, as opposed to have this list of what you expect from another partner. Are you living that? Because often we want these things from outside, but we're not living it ourselves.
No, I understand what you're saying. I do. And I think
even down to pleasure too. Like we need to understand our bodies. We need to understand the anatomy of our arousal, the anatomy of our pleasure, what we need before we are physically intimate, like sex. What do we need during? What is any type of aftercare? Understand why you're having sex in the first place. Are you doing it because you feel like your partner needs it? Are you doing it because that's how you have been taught to receive love? Are you doing it because your ego tells you need to have a certain amount of people? Like, we don't understand the why behind what we're doing. And then we just kind of go based on what society tells us we should or should not be or have.
You have me speechless because I'm listening to you talking and I'm sitting there. No. And I think when you're sitting there, I'm stepping back, and a lot of people, and I'm realizing is that, yes, there's health benefits, but I think what you said is, and I'm so sorry, like it just made so much sense, is when you said intimacy, understanding who you are, getting to know yourself. Those are things that you need to like have in place, and that's where the health benefit comes in. Because if you don't know who you are, you don't know what you like, if you don't know what you do and stuff, if you don't respect yourself a certain way, then you don't have true intimacy. You can't really have true intimacy with other people, or because you don't know what you're not even intimate to yourself. Like, you don't know what makes you happy, and then once you understand what makes you happy, then it reflects in your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical, like it glows in you. And that's why you left me speechless, because I see so many people that don't have that, like
right.
literally don't have that. And I guess
it comes from the other person, when really, if we don't know what it is that we truly want, then we kind of set our partner up for failure. And it feels like you could never be satisfied because we don't understand. And that's how you also create codependent relationships versus interdependent relationships. And that's what a partnership is. But like, there's many health benefits when you bring intimacy in, because once you understand your purpose and you start living on purpose and you start taking care of your body and understanding who you are and what you want, what we need to also understand is our sexual core. Our sexual energy is connected to our creative force. So our sexuality, yes, has the ability to create life. But if you actually open your mind and open your heart to fully understand, if we have the ability to create life, what other abilities do we have? When we create businesses, when we create podcasts, music, dance, community, all of that all comes from our sexual core. So if we've cut ourselves off from our intimacy, then we've cut ourselves off from our creative core. And if we're creatively blocked, then we're going to be sexually blocked as well. And this just isn't about just sex, but our sexual energy is not just to go and be used for the act of sex. Your sexual energy is what is your life energy. Sexual energy is what creates life. So we've been taught that sex and sexuality has everything to do with just penetration and getting off.
Yeah, I get that. Yes.
Yeah, but you can actually take your sexual energy and arousal and mentally move it around your body and use it to go fuel a workout. Use it to go fuel a public speech or a dance.
It's like a passion in you, like it just comes out, and because you're comfortable with who you are.
Put up a whiteboard on your wall, and allow that turn on to then go and erupt all over the whiteboard and watch the beauty that will come out in that. And then it also allows you to move energy all over your body. And it also gets you in tune to who you are, to open up and trust who you are, so that when you are being physically intimate with a partner, you also open up in a different way and allow yourself to have better orgasms. And orgasms have been clinically and studied and proven to be better for your immune system, better for body weight, better for sleep, better for mental health and clarity and grounding. So there's a ton of health benefits in intimacy once we understand what it is, cultivate it within ourselves so that we can share it with our partner, knowing that it's not the responsibility of our partner to get us there.
And Respectively, so I agree with you, and thank you for that. Then let's step back. For like a lot of people are like, we all now used to the whole virtual world, like online, everything's online, right? And I think the whole increase of dating apps and virtual dating itself, a lot of people, is it even possible? And maybe not. I'm just asking: is it possible to even not gain but obtain intimacy through online that I guess apps or whatever services are out there?
For sure. This is my opinion. I'd say yes and no.
Okay.
I think yes, if it's, I was going to say intuitive, but not intuitive. If it's conscious and if it is intentional is the word I was thinking.
Okay.
If you go into it understanding what you're seeking, and then you consciously say, this is what it's going to take, because we don't have the physical, which when it comes to the physical, it's not just sex, but it's also the energy exchange to understand that person's vibe, right?
Understand. Yeah.
Which that is the part that you're going to miss. And that's why I still think people need to, like, I wouldn't love, and I know you hear great stories, but I think that there's probably some other not great stories of people that date online for like a year before they meet.
Never. I'm sorry, a year?
It wouldn't work for me.
Sorry.
I need to feel somebody's vibe to make sure that it's real life and not just an online thing. But you can, if you go into it, and this is where a lot of my clients that do online dating, I ask them questions about it. They have no idea why they're there. They're just like, I'm just looking for a partner. And I'm like, but who are you? How are you representing yourself online? And what are you actually seeking? Like, I'm not talking about like tall, dark, and handsome. Like, we all want the tall, built.
Yeah. Muscles.
Right. Ambitious, all the things. But who is that man? If you're somebody seeking a man, like, who is that man? And what do you require in the conversation? What do you have to offer in that conversation? Because remember, it's not about them, it's about us. So when you meet that person and you're having that conversation, what do you bring to that conversation? What are you willing to open up about, because of the fact that you need to be intentional, because there's not that energy exchange? What can you talk about in more vividness, we'll say, so that person can actually get a feel and an understanding of who you are, what you're looking for, and what you have to offer.
That is honestly a great feedback. Like I don't think a lot of people know. I'm saying this to everybody. I've done dating sites. Okay, I do not take a year to talk to somebody. I'm happily married and haven't. But what I'm saying, and I think what I understood from Jessica, and I 100% agree, is that you've done the dating site. And a lot of men or women don't know what they want. They just are just searching. And if you don't know who you are and what you can offer right away, then you don't know what to expect. And that I agree. And I remember it was like maybe 48 hours we're talking, because people can be different from on the phone, from on the internet, from in person, because that vibe is off. Because they can be happy and talking through a text message, through online, but when you meet them in face, you're like, who are you? And they're a totally different person, right?
Yeah, totally. That's why if people are going to do that, I always say, have a conversation with them on the phone, have a Zoom call, so you can just see like a little bit of behavior and hear their voice and just feel. And then you also don't worry about the person is not really who they are on the other end, which is nice too.
But then, okay, for the one, and that makes sense for the people that are at least willing to talk to them or visually see them. But what about the ones that use the virtual or are afraid to even be intimate? Yeah, or intimate. Like, I guess besides virtual assistant, virtual online, there are people out there, in person. Yeah, or even online too. Like a lot of people pretend, but they don't step up and stuff. So like, how do they overcome that? Because maybe they want that connection, but they don't know how to go by doing that. And I guess one or two suggestions of how to overcome that, if you don't mind, from the audience itself.
Fear of intimacy is huge. And it starts with fear of intimacy within ourselves, because the more we dive deeper in ourselves, the more we have to take responsibility and accountability for making changes in our life if we are getting what we don't want, or we're not getting what we do want. So when it comes to that, we first need to look at ourselves and get very, very clear on where we're at, loving and accepting where we're at, because oftentimes we also live in our past and in our future, and we're not okay until we're there, where we need to first accept where we are right now. Then we need to look at our values and our beliefs. Then we need to understand who we're being in that, to see how we can show up. So that's the first thing. Once you do that, you'll have a different level of trust and confidence in who you are as a human, which then allows you to have a little bit more safety. When we've cut off the intimacy within ourselves, we don't have the same level of trust and confidence in who we actually are, not what we are. I'm not talking about what we look like, but who we are, which then there's that little bit of unsettledness. Then
or insecurities. Could be insecurities as well.
Absolutely, for sure. We've also been brought up in a society, because this is all over the world, where we've been taught that a lot of intimacy and vulnerability, especially for men, is weakness, that we don't expose this because we could be taken advantage of. And then you've got lots of things like fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of loss of freedom. Huge. Lots of people, a lot of times people are like, if I get into a relationship, I'm going to lose myself. Which, if we understand who you are first and what needs to be taken care of to maintain that, then you're coming into the relationship as a whole individual, allowing them to be a whole individual, so you can create that third identity that could not have been created separately.
Okay.
So there's me, and then there's us, but we are separate. And I'm committed to the relationship and the partnership, but I'm going to take care of me in order to show up fully for that relationship.
Say that again for the people that need to understand that. Because the reason why I say that, I'm sorry. Like you've seen people that just lose themselves, and and then there's some people that there's other people that want that intimacy so much that they suffocate their partners.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's the difference between interdependence and codependence.
Okay.
Codependence is we feel a lack within ourselves. That way we partner with somebody else. That partner then fulfills that missing, which then we feel whole when we're with them. But if there's ever threat of losing that person, then all of a sudden we feel less than. So we now need to be two halves coming together to create one whole. But then we need each other in order to be whole. Whereas if we understand our own intimacy and our purpose and take care of that, we come together as two wholes. Now, when you come together, you don't have one, you have three. So you have partner A, partner B, partnership.
And then the unit, yeah.
Yes, and each individual needs to take care of themselves in order to fuel and commit to the partnership. And 100%. That's why, and I love this conversation when I work with partners, because when you and your husband are angry at each other, you need to understand that you're not looking to dive deep into this because of him. You haven't actually committed to him. You've committed to the relationship that you've created together. So visualize the partnership as a teddy bear. Okay. Your man has pissed you off. Yes. And you're like, F this, I'm out. I don't need to do this. He's annoying, and therefore. But that's what disconnects and pulls us back. But if you can then stop looking at your man and look at your teddy bear, which is your relationship, you're now not making choices based on the anger you have or resentment you have towards your man. You're now making choices based on the relationship, which then you come without the blame game. I'm right, you're wrong, or needing to even have someone be right or wrong, because that's always toxic. You're like, okay, at the end of the day, I'm committed to my partnership. I want this to work. What does the partnership need? You're not looking at what does he need or what did he do. It's not about him. It's about your relationship. And triggers like that are beautiful opportunities to grow closer in your partnership if you have the intimacy, the emotional safety to open yourself up and say, okay, this has triggered me. And maybe you need to take like a breather first or whatever. I'm not saying that you just need to stop in this moment. We're human. We get triggered. Do what you need to do to allow those emotions to simmer. Do not react based on feeling and emotion. Allow them to take over. But then come back and have that conscious communication where it's like, babe, I love you, and I wanted to punch you in the face. Yes, this annoyed me. Yes, however, I value our partnership. So in order to grow in the partnership, this is what we can commit to doing. Maybe there's words that you use so that you don't cross each other's boundaries. And that's another conversation that we could have, is about having boundaries. And as long as you have the open, conscious communication with your partner, it's okay that he pisses you off. You're going to piss him off. He's going to piss you off. Knowing that that's going to happen in a relationship, what do you choose to do next? And it's the intimacy and the emotional connection that's usually missing a lot of the times, that if that is brought into the partnership, allows you to both show up as individuals to process the way you need to process in order to commit to the greater goal.
That's fair, but then wouldn't that also be based on maturity level? And maturity level is not based on age. Sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
So I think, go ahead.
For sure, maturity, I always look at it as a choice. And I think that if you've got somebody that wants to be in a relationship, I think it would be naive and I guess immature to say, I just want to assume it's always going to work. Like, sure. It's not like people go into relationships like, well, I can just get back on an app, or I can just get divorced, or I can do all those things. There's no actual commitment to the partnership. You're committed to the person until the person pisses you off. Don't love me when I'm lovable. How I know you love me is choosing to love me when I'm not lovable. It's easy to love people when they're lovable. Devotion and commitment is following through on that when they're not being lovable. And it's going to teach you something more than it's just going to teach that person, because they've triggered something in you which has everything to do with you and nothing to do with them.
And that is so fair to, like, honestly, sorry, let me step back. What you've said over the past, how long ever this episode is, I've gone to that point in my life, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, that I was like I got it. I think even when I said maturity level and stuff like that, and the understanding that, you have to have a self-identity first. Once you understand your self-identity, you coming in. And I think for a lot of women, I have to say for a lot of women, they don't have that. And then they come into a relationship. I'm sorry, you guys. Some men can't say worse.
There's a lot of men as well. The difference is there's a lot less men talking about it.
And I find a lot of men are looking for, they already are whole, but they're looking for someone to complement them. Right. It's not really as a partnership. It's just do what I want and fit that look of what I want. And I'm sorry if I'm being biased. You can tell me I'm wrong. Not you, I'm just saying in the audience. You can tell me. That's my opinion. That's what I'm seeing. But regardless, what you said, I think a lot of people don't have that concept. And there's a lot of people that get into a relationship looking for that whole, that piece that you said, and they don't have their own identity. And some may be afraid because they're going to lose their identity because their identity is who they are, and they're afraid to become something else, because if they lose that something else, they don't know who they are again. Right. And I think it's fair enough to say I felt that at one point, that I come in, I come into a as you said, as a third person, but that person leaves, that I'm no longer part of that environment. Mm-hmm. And I think you've shared a lot of knowledge. a lot of knowledge. It made me realize that, I think what I mean by that is that I've already came to this point, but when you're hearing someone else say it to you, you're like, okay, so you had sense when you were going through this whole process.
And know that I had to go through my own stuff too. Like, it's such a learning process. I've always had a love for this conversation, so I've researched it for the last 15 years of my life, which also helps me is the fact that I chose to study it. But then I bring what I learned into my relationships. I had to go through some, I wouldn't say horrible relationships, but I had to go through my learning experiences in order to fully understand it. Like, you could read something in a book, you can go to school, you could travel and learn it from different cultures, which is what I did. And then it happens to you and you're like, wow, this is easier read in a book. This feels a lot less easy on the inside of my heart.
100%.
But that healing process, choosing over, this feels uncomfortable, but I'm safe. And it's okay. And this is a human experience. And I need to do what I need to do to take care of myself right now. And this too shall pass. But what do I need to do to grow from this, as opposed to push it away? Because the more we push it away, it's going to keep showing up in our life until we learn the lesson that we were meant to learn.
100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. Because I find myself I'm mentally healthy, physically and sexually healthy based on going through that process alone. Because I understand that it's not the issues I have. I step back and go, okay, what am I contributing to the situation? Why is it affecting me? What's triggering me? And taking a step back before I go to my significant other. And then once I realize it's not about me, I'm like, no, you're being asked. You need to talk about it.
But you can even have the conversation with him. Like, that's awesome that you step back and you're like, okay, how did I contribute to this? And what are these triggers and where are they coming from? And where are they showing up on my body and what do they need to show me? Those are great questions. And even if it's something that you're truly seeing that is more about him, that's less about you, you can come at it from an approach that allows you to be like, when you did this or when this happened, I felt this. Because then when you come at, you made me feel this way, all of a sudden he's like, geez Louise, like, cut off, and there's no room for openness or growth in that. But if you're like, babe, when you did this, I felt this way and I just wanted to have a conversation with you about it, all of a sudden, because he doesn't want you to feel like crap.
Yeah, hopefully you want a man that does not want you to make you feel like crap.
Wow. And if you're okay, if you're in a relationship where your partner is okay with you feeling like crap, that's not a partnership you want to be in.
It's not a healthy partnership.
Not at all. But if you can have the maturity and the wisdom to come and say, this is how I felt when this happened, and I'd love to have a conversation, your partner is going to be a lot more receptive to be like, I had no idea. Thank you for sharing that with me. Here's what we could do in the future. And it may sound and look different. I'm not saying it needs to be as perfect, but that's okay. And you'll grow. And you need to let your partner know your communication style, what you need when you feel certain ways.
100%.
He or she is not a mind reader. And if you just need to be held in that moment because you have had stuff from your past brought up, let him know in these moments, I'm not angry at you, but I feel unsafe based on my past, but I want to grow through this with you. Please just hold me because it will allow it to move through me.
I 100% agree with you. Like, again, you're leaving me speechless. And to add to that, I think a lot of people need to step back because when you say that, you have to understand that you understand who you are as a person. That's really, like, if it's a negative experience, will affect your health. When you said, like, there's some people that are in a relationship, when you mention that to somebody and they don't want to be that baggage or that support system, that's when you have to realize that you're not in a relationship that's fully fulfilling you. With that said, a lot of people, I'm like, again, I've never been so speechless in a while, but let's try this again. I think if a lot of people are interested in your service, like, how would they reach you? What's the best source? Like, I know you're on IG. Is there?
Right now, Instagram would probably be the best because I've pulled my website back because I'm rebranding through COVID. I was like, this is a perfect time. So rebranding, it should be up in the next couple of weeks, which will be great because it will be up for the summit. And then, so in the meantime, I'd say Instagram would probably be the best.
Okay. So we'll have that underneath here. And I think for a lot of people, and you're a very intelligent woman, and I sincerely, honestly, like, I know people are intelligent, but when you're sitting there and you're talking to somebody and you're like, okay, you're making sense. And then some people have to be open to hearing this. When reaching out to you, I guess, what separates you from your peers? Like, what makes you stand out? Why should they reach out to you?
First, I'll say, if what I'm saying is triggering you, not just you, but like the audience,
understood.
I am happy to be triggering you because that means I'm giving you an opportunity to grow. And that is my why. Because I'm sick of hearing, I don't want to say sick, but I'm sad to hear of the disconnect in relationships when our relationships are like our life masterminds. They allow us to grow and flourish in such beautiful ways, but we haven't really been taught the powerful foundation as to how to create that and how to grow through it. So that is something that I want to say, that if for any of the listeners that are tuning in that are triggered, know that that is welcomed, that you are safe, and that is all okay. But please, please lean in and don't pull back. Because if you are hearing this now, you are meant to hear this right now. Second, what makes me different is I'm a registered holistic nutritionist. So I take my experience and training as a holistic nutritionist, and I combine it with my training in Tantra, conscious communication and relationships. And I combine them together synergistically. So I work with people on individual levels so we can cultivate the intimacy on a personal level first, so that you could then bring it in and share that with your partner.
Instead of having like a cookie cutter and plan, it's based on each person.
Very individual. Yeah, there's nothing cookie cutter about it. We've all gone through our own experiences. We've all got our own traumas and triggers and everything. And we've got to work with that so that we could then get you loving yourself. And I know that sounds very like cliche for yourself, but it's really getting in tune to that. And I'm not talking about just like bubble baths. I love bubble baths, don't get me wrong, but we need to do the dirty work. Loving ourselves is also climbing through the mud to discover who we are and love on that little child that didn't feel the way we want to feel now. That child that was either abandoned or neglected or bullied or something, because we've all got that inner child that has now built barriers that has kept other people at a safe distance. So we've got to honor her or him, figure out who we are, take care of ourselves through food, through sleep, meditation, moving our body, following through on our passions. Also not having the expectation that we need to be perfect, because we aren't. It doesn't matter how well trained you are, whatever you do, you're still going to bring stuff to your relationship. And
your baggage.
Yeah, and it's very easy to be great when we're single. As soon as you fall in love with someone, it will bring it all up again. That's beautiful. It's okay. Now it's building up the strength and the trust and confidence in who we are to be able to share that with the person, because usually it's a great way to fall even more in love with that person when we get to see their true colors and what they've gone through, their experiences, their fears of life and partnership and sex and all of those things. So I think what makes me different is I work on the individual, and then I bring that beautiful juiciness that we've tapped into and bring that into the relationship.
I like that. Oh, I like you. I like you. Sorry, I like you.
Passion. I'm passionate. It's got to be the red hair.
No. I think if you said you know your why. Like when I talk about certain things, I'm passionate. You can see in my face when you see someone that's passionate about it, you know that this is not bad for them. This is what they enjoy doing. And then when you enjoy doing it, it was reflected in your face and in the way you talk. So I want to say thank you for being part of this. Yeah, I sat there talking basically with my mouth open, but appreciate that.
You got a beautiful smile with your mouth open, so you wore it very well.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on our weekly episode of Health Your Way podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, share with others, and please feel free to comment below and ask any questions on topics we discussed, as well as future topics you'd like to hear about. Have a happy and healthy week, and be sure to tune in next week for the next episode on a Health Your Way podcast.